Okay, so now we're being recorded, so try to behave and try. Okay. And I'm looking for the text. I can put in the text for today. Bingo. So by now we already studied together all the most of the parts of the Seder of the Haggadah of the Seder that were originally in the Mishna. That comes straight from the Mishna, and we try to understand how it developed, how it changed from time to time. So today we're going to try to get into those parts of the Haggadah that are later, they're post-Mishnaic, even post-Talmud, and even much post other stuff. So part of the Haggadah that were added much later. Obviously, we won't have time to go over all of it, as I think it was a little ambitious thinking I could do this in 3 classes, but we'll do whatever. We'll do most of what we can today, and we can always resume next year before Pesach. So the first, I'm going to go through the order as it is in the Haggadah. Even we're going to go up.
Or before Pesach Sheni.
Before Pesach Sheni. There you go. I didn't think about that one. So you see here, I'm talking first about the Yachatz. Remember the Yachatz is the second part. So like Kadesh, right, the first cup, and Yachatz. Yachatz was not in the Mishnah. There was nothing in the Mishnah about cutting a matzah in 2. Kadesh or Chatz, so we wash our hands. We said that the washing doesn't appear in the Mishnah either, but it was probably obvious for the rabbis because it was like their custom to wash hands, do netilat yadayim, also before eating veggies at the time. So for them it was obvious. But Kadesh or Chatz, karpas, we spoke a lot about the karpas, but then Yachatz. The Yachatz is the cutting of the matzah. Now, remember why we say today that we cut the matzah in 2? I mean, when we're going through the Seder, why do we cut the matzah in 2, the middle matzah? Come on, guys. Tomorrow Seder. For the Fikoman, that's right. A Fikoman.
That's right. I like that. Why is it trying to make it?
That's a different story. I'm not sure we're going to get to it today.
I knew it's that. You make the Afikoman, but I didn't know what the reason for that was.
Yeah. So the thing is that it looks at it not necessarily the real original reason. So here you see I brought you a source from the Talmud, from Masechet Brachot, not Pesachim. So where I am the beginning of the new thing or in the middle of the old thing, it's the same text, right? And it says something like this. This resolution, it's but I think you're not in the right part. Here. Over there. So this resolution to reinforce it in the case, as Rav Papa said. Rav Papa is an Amora, a rabbi from the time of the Talmud. He said, everyone agrees that when fulfilling the mitzvah of eating matzah on Passover, one places the piece inside the hole and breaks. Right? Already the way the sentence is built is a little weird. Obviously, this is the translation, but even in the Hebrew, שמניח פרוסה בתוך שלמה ובוצע. She puts a piece inside a hole and breaks. My tama, why it's the reason? With regard to the matzah, the first bread of affliction, lechem oniktiv. It says this is the bread of affliction or the bread of poverty. There are two different ways of translating this. and the poor typically eat their bread in pieces, right? So therefore we break the matzah. So that so this is very interesting because first we have to go to the three. Discuss the fact that we have three matzot, but this differs from other Jewish meals. Normal Jewish meals. How many loaves of bread we have? A normal festival, two, right? In Shabbat and festival, two chalot.
Or maybe,
Depends how many we are.
yeah.
Yeah, but then you can reuse the other. Doesn't matter. You have two. In Pesach, it's very particular that we have three. We have three matzot, 3 loaves of bread. Bread is matzah. Matzah is bread. It's the same thing. So we have 3. So the custom of having 2 loaves of bread for Shabbat is from the Talmud already. It's mentioned in the Talmud. By also an Amora called Rabbi Abba. And why? Remember, right? The custom associate this with the 2 portions of manna that Israelites received in the desert. So 2 portions of manna, 2 chalot. That's the idea. But the thing is that it would seem from this that we need 2 loaves of bread only in Shabbat. Why do we do 2 loaves of bread in Chagim? Because the story in the Torah is only about Shabbat. So there's no source, indeed, in the Talmud requiring 2 loaves of bread for festivals. It's not such a thing, only about Shabbat. And the first one to deal with this issue was one of the Geonim. The Geonim were the Jewish leaders after the time of the Talmud in Babylon. So Rabbi Natronai Gaon, he lived in the 9th century in Babylon. So he said that the manna did not descend on festivals, and therefore the children of Israel would therefore receive a double portion of the festival. He said festivals were like Shabbat, but he's adding it. It is not in the Torah. They said they will receive a double portion, and therefore we do 2 loaves also in Shabbat. And the thing is, and then from there we have the 3rd piece of matzah, and then we have another. I didn't bring the other part of the Talmud, but it's a part of the Talmud. The 2 rabbis debating whether one could bless over full loaves or pieces of loaves. Whether, for example, I could for Shabbat have 1 challah and then half challah. Today we say no. That's the way that we teach about it. But at the moment, we were discussing whether it was an option. A very practical one, right? With all these, we have only half challah left. We don't need the whole loaf of bread. It's a lot of bread, and we have half challah. So that is a good question. And according to Rav Papa, there's a rabbi from Babylon from the 4th or 5th century. He said that one recites a blessing over a broken piece of bread, which is placed inside a full piece. So that's how you do it. He's talking about bread, no one matzah. Oh. But but you're in the right direction. I mean, that's the thing. So you can take 1 challah, stuff the challah with another piece of bread. Sounds like Thanksgiving, like stuffing the turkey, and then you bless over that. And their matzah also was not like our matzah, right? Their matzah was yummy. No, their matzah was more like a lafa. Yeah. It was flexible, so they could do the whole trick, putting like one piece inside other piece and roll it like a burrito. And then bless over it.
I think we should have that kind of matzah.
I agree too.
Today. Yeah.
And why not? Custom, because also it's more expensive to make. They have to be handmade. So the matzah that we buy is mass produced by machines.
Handmade is not a problem. We get it from China.
Yeah.
They make everything there.
Right. That's the thing. Yeah. And so the full piece is one is preferable on normal occasions, and the broken piece is to signify that the matzah is lechem oni, is a poor man's bread, and it's common for poor people to only have 1 piece of bread. And Yes, Aaron,
Well, I recall we say this is the hold of matzah, this is bread of our affliction. Is that
right.
That's over all three of them? Or only?
We no, just point at them at the point. Just cut uncover them and show them like that.
So it really isn't just the middle matzah that we hold up.
No, not at that point. Not at that point. Well, by then, yes, it's only the middle matzah is already broken, but
Yeah.
it's yeah. So the thing is that it looks that the after the Gonim, the authorities from Ashkenaz, the rabbis from Europe, they ruled that the blessing over the matzah should always be recited. You know, that's the thing that this is kind of thing that probably started like a particular situation, like this is what they had, and then becomes accustomed that it has to be done that way. I have a lot of those different. Sorry, that there's always a story that people in sociology tell about. We're doing a ritual in a temple, and a cat gets in, so they will take the cat out, or the cat of the priest. So the thing is that after doing this for several years, when the cat died, we have to bring another cat because we won't take the cat out during the services. We have to take the cat, and then when the priest died, the priest will bring his own cat, and then became a, so there are a lot of things that are start like that. In any case, so the Ashkenazi rabbis they said that the blessing of the matzah should always be recited over 2 full matzot, the 2 full matzot of every festival, plus a piece of broken matzah, because of the lechemoni. Where the Sephardi authorities ruled that it should be said over 1.5 pieces of matzah. We're more economic. And then the Sephardi took the custom of the Ashkenazi, as a lot of times happened. So by today, obviously, by the time when the Shulchan Aruch was written in the 16th century, it was the standard practice everywhere to have 2 matzot and a broken piece. So actually, we break the matzah to create the broken piece. And by the way, we keep the other one for the free common. But the main reason to break it is in order to keep the broken piece. If I continue then, so we have the Maggid. We start the Maggid, and the Maggid, of course, when I try to see a few of favorite parts. Well, so the first part here that I brought to you is a part that that Aaron was mentioned before. Alachmania. When right, those that know to sing it, we will sing it, right? Those that went to Gan in Israel. So we show the bread and say, this is the bread of destitution that our ancestors ate in the land of Egypt. Anyone who is famished should come and eat. Of course, we don't publish it anywhere, but fine, let's say. Anyone that is famished, come and eat. Anyone who is in need should come and take part in the sacrifice. Now that we are here, next year we'll be in the land of Israel. This year we're slaves. Next year we'll be a free people. That's the text. And this text doesn't appear in the Talmud at all. And appears in Haggadot from the time of the Geonim. We have a few of those, like manuscripts. I'm talking about 9th century, 8th century, 10th century. And in most manuscripts and Geniza fragments of the Haggadah. So we know that it's old.
I went to a seminar where it was all about the pilgrimage holidays. And from all over the country, preparations beforehand, repairing roads, setting up, digging more wells, clearing them out. When everybody finally converged on Jerusalem, where were they going to stay?
Yeah.
People who lived there were only like a quarter of the people who arrived. But,
right.
But the tradition was to open your homes for these pilgrims so that they'd have where to stay. And Airbnb. And in so doing, you also absorb the mitzvah of their coming to Jerusalem for the pilgrimage. Come, everyone who is hungry and so forth. That reminds me of the hospitality that was very willingly provided in Jerusalem for all the arrivals. Yeah.
That's a very nice idea. Probably this, I mean, what the scholars believe is that this is a composition. We don't know exactly who did it. It's a composition in the time of the Geonim from parts that were older. So it might be that some ideas of this come what you're saying. Most of these parts, some of these parts, there are a few ideas that are found in the Babylon, in the Babylonian Talmud. but they were not presented in the context of the Seder. They were just there somewhere. They took it from there, and they did this composition, and therefore it's in Aramaic. Because that was the language that they spoke in the Geonim. The Geonim spoke. Early prayers, very early prayers, were composed in Hebrew, like the Amidah. But in the prayer of the Geonim, prayers and other texts were frequently written in Aramaic, like the Kaddish. So the reason it's in Aramaic, it points to that time. And the thing is, the funny thing that we have some words in Hebrew, right? The Shana Haba is Hebrew. The Shana Haba B'nei Chorim is Hebrew.
Yeah.
So the thing is that in earlier version of the Haggadah, we have those parts also in Aramaic. So the fact that here we got them in Hebrew apparently was just where scribes copied later, they just translated those parts themselves, and therefore we got them in Hebrew. Now, the original was probably in Aramaic. And now there's an interesting idea that is not proven. I think interest. There was there's a modern scholar that suggests that Al-Ahma was introduced in the Haggadah as a polemic, as a kind of discussion against the Christians who read in the Gospels, "This is my body, which is given for you. Do this in remembrance of me." Right? This is from the New Testament. From the New Testament. So while it is not impossible that a medieval recitation should be composed in competition with the Christians, it was very common in the Middle Ages. By this time, it's not so possible that it was written at that time against the Christians. It was too early to be written against the Christians, and also not in Babylon. Babylon, they have the problem at the time. It was early Islam. Early Muslims were ruling in Babylon, in Persia.
It's interesting that people celebrating
Mhm.
the Last Supper as Passover. And the Christians do not use matzah, they use leavened bread,
Right.
which is, okay, if that was, you should
Yeah.
have known that.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Small detail they missed.
What?
Small detail that they missed.
Whereas at the communion, where they take the body of Christ and the blood of Christ, and it is a little wafer, and
Yeah, actually eating your favorite.
Yeah. So you see in the next part, I went to the Avadim Ha'inu. Then we have the Mishna, but Mishna, we spoke about it in the other lesson with it. Mishna originally it is in the Mishnah, but we have this part about Avadim Ha'inu. So right, the song is very famous, right? Avadim Ha'inu. The issue that the song is not part of the text. The song is they took the idea, but we don't have the Atav B'nei Chorim in the Haggadah. That part we don't have it in the Haggadah. So it's a song. It's a song that took the first part of this and make it into something else. In the text of the Haggadah reads like this: "We were slaves to Pharaoh in the land of Egypt, and the Lord our God took us out from there with a strong hand and an outstretched forearm. And if the Holy One, blessed be He, have not taken our ancestors from Egypt, behold, we and our children's children will all be enslaved to Pharaoh in Egypt. And even if we were all sages, all discerning, all elders, all knowledgeable about the Torah, it will be a commandment upon us to tell the story of the Exodus from Egypt. And anyone who adds, meaning they spends more time, extra time, telling the story of the Exodus from Egypt, behold, he is praiseworthy." So, right. So probably that was the reason we're saying. We learned when we learned from the Mishnah, we saw that in time of the Mishnah, apparently they did the first they ate, and then they did the whole reading and the ritual. So that wouldn't work today. Imagine people would eat and that's it. We're gonna add up, but we wouldn't do anything. So the rabbis were wise to change the order at some point. Anyway, so this we read in the Mishnah, and the Mishnah said that remember, guys, we begin with disgrace and conclude with praise. מתחיל בפורענות, מסיים בשבח. And so when we talk about the Exodus here, we begin with the disgraced Israelites, עבדים היינו לפרעה במצרים, and we end with praise for God, assumably for deliverance from slavery. Now, the discussion, of course, we have to discuss it. So in the Talmud, the rabbis discuss what is the disgrace here. What is the disgrace? What is the poranut? What is the disgrace? One of them says that the disgrace is that we were slaves. That's the disgrace. It was terrible. We were slaves. Or the other says, no. The disgrace is that our ancestors were originally idol worshippers. That we have that part later. So one of saying, this is being a slave is worse than being an idol worshiper. No, being an idol worshiper is worse than being a slave. And they couldn't, of course, get to a conclusion to the whole idea. And the second opinion, that we were idol worshippers, is attributed in most Talmudic manuscripts to Rav, that he lives in the early 3rd century in Babylon, who gives a similar idea in the other Talmud, in the Yerushalmi. Whether the many scholars say that the first opinion is Shmuel, and Rav and Shmuel were like less known Hillel and Shammai. Hillel and Shammai were in the time of the Mishnah. Rav and Shmuel were from the first generation after the Mishnah, that in Babylon, that they were like the leaders of the schools, and they were fight all the time. I mean, they were good friends, but they were fight all the time about their different ideas. They were in Hebrew we call that a bar plukta, the one that you discuss with, or you debate, right? Actually, that's the right word. Debate with, and the thing is that one of the stories is very limited historically speaking. The idea that the problem here is that we were slaves, so that's it. We were slaves. The Exodus happened. Great. The other idea is more complicated because it's more, we were idol worshippers at some point, then we kind of weren't, but then we were and we know that at least during the whole first temple period, we were like worshiping idols like on and off all the time. And it is in the Bible, and we have found a lot of little domestic idols in Israel to realize that it was true, that people had these little idols all around. And in our Haggadah, the verse that a verse that was added later by another sage says, and he took us out from there, is understood to emphasize that those living in the present were also redeemed from Egypt. He took us from there. Yeah, that's the operative word. So the first was the discussion between Rav and Shmuel, what was the disgrace? But then the later rabbis, they added this idea that it was important to put us into the story, not really something that happened to other people, but to put us into the story. And the second section of Adim Ayinu that we just saw states that had God not redeemed our ancestors, we will still be slaves. Historically doubtful, but we will still be slaves. And so it's connected to this other idea.
You would have been assimilated and disappeared.
That's most probably what will happen, yeah. Anyway, so I want to say that the next part that I think is interesting. So also probably you recognize this little paragraph here. You know, it happened once on Pesach that Rabbi Eliezer, Rabbi Yeshua, Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, Rabbi Akiva, and Rabbi Torfon were reclining in Bnei Brak and were telling the story of the Exodus from Egypt the whole night. And their students came and said to them, the time of reciting the morning Shema has arrived. Have you ever had any comment about this part, or what you guys, or anything that you guys telling your Seder about it that you can share? Anything that you remember about it?
All I remember is that we said, B'nai Brak then, like B'nai Brak.
There you go.
Or it sounds more like Shavuos where you study all night long.
Reminds of Shavuot, right? The thing is, in Shavuot, you force yourself to study all night. Here, the idea that they were so excited about it that they just the night passed and didn't realize that they were already in the morning.
Plus you had the 4 glasses of wine.
Well, we don't have it here. I mean, we don't say we didn't. I mean, we have in the Mishna, but they don't mention it. But they say that they were telling the story. Actually, they will fall asleep. The wine doesn't help with this, and maybe have coffee then.
Simply watered it down as we learned earlier.
Water down, yes. Still, I mean, okay, have a
It wasn't
beer, a few beers, to see if you don't fall asleep in the.
No, you don't have beer on Pesach. Especially not in B'nai Brak.
Especially not in Bnei Brak. No, not recommended. Not recommended to bring a beer to Bnei Brak. So, the thing is, I mean, one of the classical explanation that once I heard, I think it's probably written also in this book, I think, is that some people say that these are, we know that Rabbi Akiva was involved in a rebellion, right?
Yes.
He was involved in the Bar Kokhba rebellion.
Oh,
Rabbi Akiva was the Shach Yassin of the Bar Kokhba rebellion. He was the spiritual leader of the rebels.
He traveled all over the Levant, recruiting funds for that.
Mm-hmm.
Funds,
So,
like fundraising, yeah.
so there is a commentary that then we're going to see that probably is not true, but that's nice. You know, don't let truth spoil a nice story. That these rabbis were actually discussing about how terrible these are the Romans are here. I mean, they were talking about the Exodus then, and how they were like oppressed now by the Romans, then by Egyptians, now by Romans, until their students came and say, like, okay, guys, let's do something about it. Let's not continue talking about it. So they said this is how the rebellion started, by the students coming and making the old people move and do something. It's a nice story, but probably no relation to reality. The thing is that this story here, I mean, all these guys were famous Tanaim. Rabbi Eliezer, Rabbi Yeshua, Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, Rabbi Akiva, and Rabbi Tarfon, the most important Tanaim of their time. So how come we don't have this in anywhere else in the Talmud or in any Talmudic source? We have a similar story though, and that's the one that I brought you here afterwards. That's from the Tosefta. Tosefta, remind you, is material from the time of the Mishna, but it was not included in the Mishna. I mean, when the edition of the Mishnah happened, then this is what they get out of the Mishnah. It's like the deleted scenes of the Mishnah.
Funny it's called a Tosefta, but it's a.
Yeah.
Like additional scenes from a movie. So
Right. Exactly that. It's exactly that. So I mean, it's amazing that we have them, because you know the way edited it out, we might never see them, but somebody did the edition, and we have it today. Anyway, so there we have a similar story, but it says like this: once Rabban Gamliel and the elders, the Skinim, the sages, idea, were reclining in the house of Baitus ben Zonin in Lud. So of course we can make all the jokes about socioeconomical modern Israeli society between Bnei Brak and Lud. And they were occupied in studying the laws of Pesach all that night until the cock crowed. They lifted the table, made themselves ready, and went to the house of study to pray. So it is similar, but it's not. There are many differences actually here. And for example, the names, right? The different sages. Rabban Gamliel, well, the issue with Rabban Gamliel, there were more than one. We were not sure which one is this one. But the first Rabban Gamliel lived before the other rabbis, in the other version. But it could be one of the later Rabban Gamliels. And places, right? One in Bnei Brak, here's Lud. But they're similar enough to intend the possibility that the one in the Haggadah is a later rendition of the earlier version in the Tosefta. And the most significant difference, I think the most significant difference is in the topic. What's the difference? It's a slight difference, but it's meaningful. In our story in the Haggadah, what are they doing? Telling the story of the Exodus. In the Tosefta, they're learning the laws of Pesach, they're studying Halacha. So there are several reasons in order to believe that the version preserved in the Tosefta is more original. First, the fact that the Haggadah story does not appear in any other source. That's already like a bad indication. And second, it is more likely that the Tanaim will gather and discuss the finer points of the Halacha than the story of the Exodus. They were not, the stories were for children. I mean, let's study law, let's study Halacha. That's for real men. That kind of the view. To make more sense, that's what they were discussing. They rarely compose comprehensive and stories from narratives from the Torah. Generally speaking, in the Halacha, they will all the time talk about it. And there are several other places in the sources which refer to studying the laws of Pesach on Pesach itself. It looks at originally, it's actually that instead of the Seder, before the Seder was composed, that's what you did in Pesach. I mean, at least the rabbis and their circles, they will get together, have the sacrifice, eat matzah, maror, drink wine, and discuss halacha. That's what they did. And in the same passage, Rabbi Eliezer, we have it here, but Rabbi Eliezer requires that a chavura was like a group of rabbis, they studied the laws of Pesach all night. We'll say it was a requirement. So we know that they used to do this. So the question is then, why did they create the Haggadah version? Do you have any idea? So we have this version, and I look at this is the original version. Why did somebody create this other, like, more modern version of the story? You have any idea why?
The distinction that you just mentioned, that was making the laws rather than just talking and telling a story. That's why. And one of the emphasis to be on that.
Okay, and why? So, fine. I mean, that's a very good, theory. Because the question is why.
Because by that point, the laws of halakha were being crystallized. What comes to mind, but that's not the word.
Well,
that's the idea.
More established.
Right.
I think that's a direction, but probably this story reflects a transition between the earlier custom of studying the laws of Pesach after the meal to the later custom of studying the Exodus before the meal. I think that both are attempts to open the Seder to people that are, not rabbis. I mean, maybe rabbis will have fun, like discussing halacha as they're having the dinner. But normal people and children and women, of course, were not educated at the point. They didn't have any. For them, it was not meaningful at all. So the story of the Exodus, telling the story and having songs and whatever, it makes much more sense. And this is going to become like a family issue and something that most people will do, and not only this elite of rabbis. And regarding the story that I said before about Bar Kochba, really there's no evidence for that. It's very popular notion that these rabbis were plotting the Bar Kochba rebellion at the point, and that's what it is. Even if the story were taken to be an accurate recording of an event, if historically it will really happen, there's no reason to take it at face value, and except for Rabbi Akiva, that the rabbis, we don't know that they participated at all in the rebellion. Okay. Now, I want to get to the also another very famous part is the 4 children.
Mhm.
The 4 children also, as we saw, was not there in the Mishnah. It's not that old. But it says here, or this is the first part. I didn't read the whole thing because it's long. But he brought here the first part. So blessed be the place, I mean, be God. Blessed be he, blessed be the one who gave the Torah to the people of Israel, blessed be he. Corresponding to 4 sons did the Torah speak, one who is wise, and one who is evil, and one who is innocent, and one who doesn't know how to ask. So the origin of this,
Vibrat Torah, where is it? Talk about that in the Torah.
Divrat Torah, only had Divrat Torah.
In
Divrat, right. Can I get Divrat Torah? Right. Yeah, right. It's an uncommon way of putting it.
Okay,
I mean, grammatically it's right, but yeah, it's a little weird. Anyway, it looks that the origin of this story of the 4 children is in a midrash, in the Mechilta de Rabbi Ishmael. Mechilta de Rabbi Ishmael is a early midrash, also from the time of the Mishnah, and Mishnah midrash on Sefer Shemot, and a nearly identical version of this midrash is also found in the Talmud Yerushalmi. So also there. And the thing is that we compare the versions. There are a few things that are interesting. First of all, the simple one, or innocent translated here, but the tam in Hebrew is not tam in the Mechilta and in the Yerushalmi, is tipesh.
Mhm.
So they were less politically correct. So saying, no, he's an innocent kid. No, he's dumb. Not the thing with him. It could be both. Right. The Mechilta said that utipesh is the word. But then there are a little different. For example, remember the wise one. His question is, what are these old rules that God or God ordered you? Use etchem. That's what the wise son says. In the version of Yerushalmi, actually I have it here. I forgot I brought it also. Let's read the Yerushalmi first. You have it here in the daf. So in the Jerusalem Talmud, it says like this. You have it here in the daf. Halacha, it said, Rabbi Chia stated, the Torah spoke about 4 children: a wise child, a wicked child, a stupid child, and a child who does not know how to ask. What does the wise child say? What are the testimonials, the ordinances, and the laws that the eternal God commanded us? And that's a very significant difference. It makes much more sense, because then we're going to be tough with the wicked one, because he takes himself out, all right, of the people. Like he says, this is for you, right? Okay, ma avodah zot lachem. And we're talking about, but the wise one is doing the same in the Haggadah. He says, what are the rules that God ordered you? So it makes more sense. The original version, Kanire, it was this version of saying otanu, to us. He's including himself. Makes much more sense. And then says, also you should tell him, with a strong hand did the Eternal led us out of Egypt, the house of slaves. And that is not in the Haggadah. I mean, that's a different answer we give. They give him in the Yerushalmi. Then the order also different. Here in the Haggadah and in the Yerushalmi, after the wise, we have the wicked. In the original Mechilta is first is the stupid and then the that's less important. Anyway, so look how much more makes sense what the wicked son says. It's, what does this service mean to you? What is that is in the Haggadah. But then what is this exertion which you impose on us every moment, every year? I mean, it doesn't only say lachem. He's like being even tougher and saying this. What is this exertion? What is this like very terrible like burden that you guys upon ourselves. He's not wrong. He's not wrong, right? But then why you make us crazy with all the whole thing? And now we say, since he's excluding himself from the community, also you should tell him because of this, the eternal do for me. When I left Egypt for me, he did it. For that man, he did not do it. If that man had been in Egypt, he would not have been worthy even to be remitted. That's also we have the similar idea in the Haggadah.
חג שמח.
כן, כן, ראיתי ששלחתי לי איזה עוד 1,000 הודעות, אבל לא. אוקיי.
חג שמח.
The idea is different, the way to put it is a little different. In the Haggadah, they say, me and not you, because he was in Egypt, he wouldn't have been redeemed. In this version of the Yerushalmi, there's a little longer. If that man who had been in Egypt, he wouldn't have been worthy of being redeemed forever. So it's a little like longer, a little more emphasis, but it's the same idea. And then we have the stupid, our tam, our simple one. And here is the stupid. What does the stupid child says? What is this? This is exactly like the Haggadah, mazot. The answer is a little different. In the Haggadah, we answer to him, I mean, God take us out with a stretched hand from the house of slavery. That's it. Here, tell him the rules of Passover, that one may not follow and that is in Greek. Huh? Right. Well done.
I read the tweet.
Oh, well done. Right. So we are not supposed to eat under a fickle man. That one may not leave one company and join another company. And so that's the original meaning of a fickle man. That's a different story. But a fickle man, in the time of the rabbis, was not the matzah that we call today. Fickle man was a Greek custom of after you finish the meal, you will go and continue the party in the house of the neighbors. Now with the fickle, you will go, like knock the door and hey, and we continue the party there. So the rabbis are telling you, we don't do that in Pesach, guys. In Pesach, we finish our meal, we go to sleep, or we stay studying Torah. We don't go out and continue the party later. So that's the reason when the rabbis say we don't do a fickle man, that's the idea. With time, for many, many reasons that I don't think we're going to get to them today, the fickle man with time became to mean the piece of matzah that we eat at the end of the meal. So here, but the important thing now for our children here is that this is the answer that in the Haggadah we give the wise, not the stupid. And this is very, very, very interesting. I mean, okay. I think you guys see the over there. We're gonna call her, okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, David.
What that means in Greek. That the among us is uncommon, but I don't think that's right.
It's all Greek. It's all Greek, so it might be a little different.
Yeah.
So the hiding of the afikoman and
That's even more modern. This is in order to keep the kids engaged.
yeah, and then afterwards, the one who finds it gets a present and all that stuff.
Absolutely.
Everything's modern.
All that is more modern in order to bribe the kids into staying awake and taking part of this. So it's interesting. Yeah, so the answers are swapped. I mean, if this kid is stupid, why should we give him tell him the rules of Passover and give him a very hard lesson on Jewish law if we're thinking that he's stupid? And the wise, we will give them the answer of the. I think that here the editor of the Haggadah actually made it. Hi. Bye, Miriam. Chag Sameach. Chag Sameach.
Chag Sameach.
What we have thought.
Yeah. Swapping the questions makes sense in the Haggadah, I think, because these questions, these like answer about the Afikoman and the details of the laws, makes more sense for the wise. And the other very simple answer of God took us out of Egypt, that's makes more sense for the stupid, simple, whatever, the one that is. And then the last one, with the child who does not know how to ask, you have to begin and initiate with him. That's exactly what we have in our Haggadah. Only the end is a little different. Rabbi Yossi said, this is what the Mishna says, if the son does not know how to ask, his father instructs him. So we read that from the Mishnah. So here he brings the Mishnah, in our Haggadah, they don't bring the Mishnah. That's the main difference. Okay, no problem. You can see the end later in the video. You're probably gonna do another 20 minutes or
Chag
so.
Sameach, Drishat Shalom.
Wow. It doesn't matter to you.
Yeah,
It says absolutely.
after the meal, there you go. Which makes more sense. So we're gonna speak a little about the plagues. So how many drops of wine with pill in the Haggadah?
10?
Or
Spelled?
One more, 11?
why one more?
I don't remember why, but I remember there was not just those 10, but I can't remember why now.
All right. The custom actually is, and I have to tell you,
Or-
well, so until now, I will do like you. I will do the 10 plagues, and then we say the three like acronyms, right? The Tzach, Hadash, and also we do one. The thing is that we're supposed to do 16. Because before that, this is what he says, and when he says blood and fire and pillars of smoke, that comes from a verse from I think it was Joel. Okay. And it's from Joel that like blood and fire and pillars of smoke, we're also supposed to blood, fire, and pillars of smoke. So that's another 3. It's supposed to be 16. Of course, the question is why? Why do we spill the wine? The answer I always give, because it's a beautiful answer, in order to take a little bit from our happiness and like solidarity with the suffering of the Egyptians. That's the kind of the answer. It's okay, it's a nice idea, not hating your enemy, even if you have to fight it. It's not an idea that's also relevant for these days. So, but there were other ideas, and at some point, maybe even the origin was a different origin. So, the earliest mention of this custom of spilling the wine is a sermon given in Pesach by Rabbi Eliezer of Worms. Like he lived in the 12th century. So we're talking about 12th century Germany. That was the first time that this custom appeared somewhere. And after listening to the plagues, Rabbi Eliezer writes 16 words. For each word, a finger goes into the cup of wine and they spill out a drop. This is the custom of our fathers. 16 times they spill out a drop, matching the sword of the Holy One, blessed be He, which has 16 sides. And the 16 mentions of plague in Jeremiah, I didn't count them, but anyway, there's 16 mentions of plague in Jeremiah. This custom teaches us that we will not be injured. Based upon this midrashim, our ancestors created this custom. And 16 times the word Chaim appears in Tehillim 119. And 16 people read the Torah each week, 7 on Shabbat, 3 at Shabbat Mincha, 3 on Monday, and 3 on Thursday, matching the 16 lambs that are sacrificed a week. This is also a tree of life for those who hold on to it. that also 16 from Mishle. And one should not ridicule the custom of our holy ancestors.
7 on Shabbat and twice, 3 times, 3 aliyot on Monday and Thursday, that's,
And then 3 in Mincha on Shabbat.
Shabbat Mincha.
oh, okay.
So according to this
If
explanation,
we have Rosh Chodesh or a holiday.
well, why you complicate it? And according to the explanation, looks like spilling the wine is a means to ward off potential danger inherent in God's 16-phase word. Like God is coming, we don't want to make God angry, so we'll attack us with this 16-phase sword. There's mentioned in the book of Jeremiah 16 times. So we spill the wine out of fear that once God's destructive powers have been unleashed, they will strike us as well. The Maharil, but it's not the Maharal, the Maharil, Rabbi Jacob Mollin, he lives in Germany in the 14th and 15th century, he writes it explicitly. It seems that the reason is to say, protect us from all of these, and that this plague should come upon our enemies, that this cup should grant well-being to Israel. So it's the opposite of the explanation that we usually give. It's not solidarity with our enemies because we are the strong and they are the weak, and so they have pity on them. Is we're afraid that this will come to us and we want to protect ourselves. That last explanation, in contrast, was offered by Don Isaac Abravanel from Spain. So it looks like there's a difference here between Ashkenaz and Sfarad. And Ashkenaz was this more like tougher, like kind of explanation, and in Sfarad in Spain, that still have to be consider that we're talking about 15th century Spain, like the Inquisition and the expulsion. And still, they say that we spill wine because of the commandment in Proverbs not to rejoice upon the demise of our enemies. Although it does not seem that this is the origin of the custom, it is a notion that is connected to Pesach in classical rabbinical sources. So Isaac Rabanel connected many different ideas. For example, these are something from Pesikta Rav Kahana, is another book of Midrash. It says, but on Pesach we don't read the Hallel except on the first day, and it's night. Why not? As Shmuel said, if your enemy falls, do not rejoice. So originally they wouldn't read the Hallel at all in the next 6 days. We only do Hallel in the first day. Today we do Hallel all the time, but we don't do the whole Hallel, the 6 days. Even today we do the whole Hallel only the first day, and then the rest of the days, what is called half Hallel. It's not really half Hallel, but half Hallel. Again, the idea because the first day we are like allowed to be happy because we were liberated, but then we can realize that our liberation came at a cost, so we can have some kind of solidarity.
We've always warned at our table after you dip 10 drops out of your cup. Don't lick your finger at the end because your finger's got wine and it's sticky and sweet and so forth. Don't benefit from especially the 10th one of the death of our firstborn of Egypt. We don't rejoice.
That's not. I don't think I ever heard that one.
We don't rejoice at their death. We dab our finger on a napkin, but we don't put it in our mouth.
That's nice. Indeed, there's a debate later on whether one should spill the wine with one's finger or pour directly from the cup. And if it is with one's finger, which finger?
Oh,
We're Jews. We're gonna get the debate
Left
everything.
hand or right hand?
Right. Which finger? The problem with putting one's finger in the wine is that this dirties the wine in the cup, and according to some authorities, renders it undrinkable. People didn't have so much hygiene that we have today.
But didn't you already rinse your fingers at least once?
At least once. One authority said that after the finger was put into the cup, they would spill out all of the wine and pour a new cup. But then you're wasting wine. Those who hold that it should be spilled with a finger refer to the book of Exodus, where the magician says regarding the vermin, Arov, this is the finger of God. So a finger, so we have
I never paid attention. I don't know. I think I just used whatever was convenient. I know I didn't use my little finger.
I think I always use my little
That's
finger.
probably the dirtiest finger I have.
Yeah.
And where have you been putting it?
That's what I'm not gonna say.
That's exactly what, yeah. So when I was growing up in some houses, I think in my house also, we will do it with a spoon. We were very civilized. We'll take a spoon and take it out with that. But then my rabbi, when I would put something, my rabbi would just put the finger and say, it's a minhag, do this, and then you have to lick it.
Oh,
Like you will lick it, not like you're, I like what you said.
Or if it's the finger of God, you take the yud from the Torah reading
Mm-hmm.
and use it.
All right, so then we have,
after you kosher it in
Yeah.
boiling water.
oh, right.
Yeah.
Then we have this, we
should
spoke
be-
about it in the Mishnah, the
It
famous,
should be kosher, it's only been being used on the Torah, that's presumably clean and kosher,
what, the finger?
the yud from
Ah,
the.
the yod. Oh, right. Yeah, we're in Canada. Anyway. We spoke about Ravan Gamliel and the famous sentence, you know, in Kol Mishamar Lo Shoshat Haremeru Pesach. Whoever did not say these three things in Pesach has not fulfilled his duty. Pesach Matzah Maru. So the idea here of Pesach is one of the is the second instance in the Haggadah in which we have seen evidence of a Pesach, a roasted lamb, being eaten after the destruction of the temple. So the first was the original version of the Manishtana, remember? When one of the questions was, why do we eat only roasted on Pesach and the other days roasted and cooked or whatever? And there are several Talmudic and non-Talmudic sources that have been used by scholars to prove that Jews continue to eat a Pesach, or at least a lamb roasted in a manner similar to the Pesach sacrifice, long after the destruction of the temple. Here I brought a few. So in Mishnah Beitzah, Raman Gamliel also said three things as leniencies in opposition to the view of most of the sages. They're talking in Mishnah Beitzah about three things that Raman Gamliel was more lenient about than other sages. One, may sweep the room of the couches on a festival. The idea is the dining room. They will eat there. There was no concern with sweeping the room. One might come to fill the holes and level the ground, but that would be prohibited in festivals. One may place incense on a festival in order to make our one house to smell nice. And one may prepare a whole kid, a goat, yeah, not a kid, something they would like to, but not that's not the point.
Not one of the four sons.
Yeah, no, one of the four children, not a son.
Yeah, there's one of them.
Yeah. On the night of Passover, I want a custom. However, the rabbis prohibit all these practices. Why prohibit the lamb? That's at the end of the paragraph. Because it will appear as he were eating consecrated foods outside the temple. And that's the explanation that was given also afterwards, when the custom actually became not to eat roasted lamb in Pesach, davka, and that's the origin of the chicken soup and the chicken and potatoes in Pesach.
That's why there's a surprise that in Lud there was a cock that could crow after all the chickens had been roasted for the Passover meal.
Right. So probably the people when they decide to change, they base themselves on this, just say that why we don't eat lamb. But we have this other Mishnah in Pesachim. The Mishnah, another custom says, in a place where people were accustomed to eat roasted meat on Passover evenings, one may eat. In a place where people were accustomed not to eat, one may not eat it. So, in other words, it depends on the custom of the place. You're having Pesach with a Yemenite family that up to this day they eat davka, roasted lamb in Pesach, then you can have roasted lamb in Pesach. If you're going to an Ashkenazi family, you're gonna have chicken soup and
Now
negla.
you tell me, if I don't, I would have looked for a Yemenite family to have.
Now I'm telling you,
It's soft.
soft matcha and the lamb. What else you want? You can make a taco of roasted lamb.
Shawarma and alafa.
German alafa, very much. Yes, exactly.
We have meat and fish. Meat and fish.
That's Ashkenazi. What can I do? We never eat gefilte fish. That's how we have to have gefilte fish. To be honest, we only eat gefilte fish in order to eat grain. Like,
It's the only time here I eat horseradish.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Royal loves it. Royal loves the kind of spicy of the horseradish or the wasabi with the same idea.
Yeah.
I mean, much more than the spicy from like chili pepper. The kind of spiciness that cleans you up.
Mm.
It was on a military base near Mitzperamon, and there were Russians that were there, and they couldn't touch the hot peppers that the Moroccan cook
Would eat like this.
And yet, on the other hand, they would be eating friend by the spoonful, and my nose wouldn't let me do that. So each culture has its
Yeah.
kick,
And the tolerance, yeah.
and one does cover it, and the other doesn't.
Okay, so now we get to the maror. And the maror is a little different from the matzah, because unlike the matzah, which is mentioned in the Torah, separately from the Pesach sacrifice, the maror is mentioned in the Torah only as a complement to the sacrifice. There are katuv the Torah, merorim, al matzah merorim yochlu. We're talking about the sacrifice. So we could say, this is what is called in the Talmud, hava amina. You could say that you don't need to eat maror anymore. There's no sacrifice, no maror. We solve the problem of the horseradish. So the rabbis of the Mishnah, they needed to emphasize that the mitzvah to eat maror remained. So in the Mishnah that we read this, it lists bitter herbs as one of the foods brought to the table. We read in the Mishnah during the Seder, and then state that charoset is not a mitzvah to imply that the other foods are a mitzvah. If charoset is not a mitzvah, then matzah and maror are a mitzvah to eat, and that's indeed how we understood this. And the question, of course, the problem here is what counts as maror, and that's what we brought here.
I buy endive now for pizza.
Of Kolakavod.
Mhm.
You should see here. The rabbis will be very proud of you.
Last time you said lettuce, right?
Endive
Yes, indeed.
is bitter, more bitter than lettuce.
Our lettuce is slightly sweet today. It was not like, because after 1,500 years of manipulation, it became sweeter.
What did you say about maror?
I buy endive, which is called olash.
Mhm.
It's a small
Olash.
thing about this size with, this looks like lettuce, but small.
Uh-huh.
And I buy those for Pesach. And we still have lettuce, and we still have, of course, radish. But that's what I explained.
For that, you say the blessing, yeah.
That's what I explained.
And that sounds like a very good thing.
Speaking of that, what is Chervil or Tamka or
All right.
Eringo
So,
and
okay, so right there. So this is not, you see it here, this is a Mishnah from the same tractate, the Sahim,
Mhm.
but it's not, it's a different chapter. It's not the chapter that speak about the Talmud, about the Seder. Because, so here it says, and these are the vegetables with which a person can fulfill his obligation of maror on Passover. With chazeret, that we said that chazeret is not our chazeret. Chazeret in Hebrew today is horseradish, and it's not horseradish here. Chervil, that, again, some kind of herb.
Kind of like chicory,
chicory.
but the leaves, not the root.
Mhm.
Yeah.
With field eringo.
That's the type
You know what it is?
A type of thorn.
Oh, wow.
Really?
Yeah, like, in other words, like, artichoke.
Mm.
And
That.
But they're all bitter.
yeah, they're all bitter at the point, right? And this, as we said before,
And
and with maror, that in English, when they said maror, they mean something called sanchez, something like that.
Sunchoke, yeah.
Now again, not particularly know, but
from what language are all these names?
Aramaic.
They are all.
So the thing is, whoever translates this is kind of guessing what they're talking about. I mean, it's an educated guess, but it's a guess, nonetheless.
Right.
Oshim Tamcha Becharvina Bemarot. But then look at the rabbis really gave they prefer the Hazeret, lettuce for them, for other reasons as well. Oh wow. I wouldn't eat that. It doesn't look edible.
No, but that's.
Looks like it would eat me.
Yeah, right.
It's a tiny sort of artichoke, but there are the leaves. And,
Oh.
the bitter.
Yeah.
It looks, I think I recognize it, I know the name in Hebrew now. Doesn't come to mind. I don't think of it, but anyway, yeah, that's a type of thistle, just like artichoke is a type of thistle,
Mhm.
I wouldn't,
much larger.
I wouldn't.
Yeah, so I got that right, and chervil is like chicory. Chicory root was used to make coffee when you didn't have coffee. And so you can imagine coffee.
My grandma used to
Coffee
drink
has a.
Bitter taste, yeah.
Or, yeah, so the leaves of chervil, leaves of chicory would also have a.
Mhm.
Not very tasty,
Good.
but no
That's what we
caffeine
want.
there. There's no caffeine in
Yeah, but
chicory.
it's not for the caffeine, it's because it makes your mouth pucker when you eat it. I don't like kale for the same reason. Kale is another thing I can't stand. You have to cook it to eat it. You can't.
Yeah, obviously. Yeah,
Kale?
no,
Yeah.
never will eat kale like.
I like it,
No, me too, but cooked.
Cooked,
No.
cooked,
Yeah, see, then,
evident.
well, there are other plants that once you cook them, all the things that are undesirable go away.
Right.
The heat and boiling and water and so forth, you lose what's objectionable otherwise.
Yeah,
So.
like that
Yeah,
type
it tastes
that
good
type
when
as well.
it's
Yeah.
actually done that.
Right.
Yeah, but those are all kinds of plants that are off-putting until you've given them some kind of treatment other than just pull them out of the ground and eat them.
Mhm.
Yeah.
All right, so then, but after we saw all the different options, it looked at the rabbis did prefer the lettuce. So we have this idea from the Yerushalmi here. It says, as Hazeret, again, lettuce, is sweet at the beginning and bitter at the end, so did the Egyptians behave towards our forefathers in Egypt. But to start in the best part of the land, settle your father and your brothers, and after they have been bitter alive with hard labor, mortar and bricks. In the beginning, they were sweet to us, and then they were bitter with us. So the lettuce is the same. So the other look at the rabbi really liked the lettuce as the on the maror. And then the other idea is that in the Talmud, and this is a nice Rasha from Rava, says, what is Hazeret? He says, it's lettuce, chasa. Here he was the word chasa. Chasa was an Aramaic word. Hazeret was a Hebrew word. The Gemara explains what is the meaning of lettuce, of chasa, to the fact that God's mercy has on us. You have to see that in Hebrew. My chasa, the chas rachamana aleinu. Elohim chas aleinu, has mercy on us. Chasa. So that they make a drash with the word. Again, and here I jumped a ton, but really we'll have more time. So we're gonna go towards the end. Because of course I wanted to mention the two more famous songs at the end, Had Gadya and Had Gadya, that hope you don't get disappointed, that the Had Gadya first appeared in the Haggadah from Prague in 1590. It's quite new. 1590, yeah, that's where I was in nothing, it's yesterday. However, scholars have demonstrated that both songs existed maybe centuries before they were first connected to the Seder. Existed, just they were not part of the Seder. While some scholars think that the songs were actually Jewish adaptations of non-Jewish folk songs. And now we have a bunch of those.
Ah, okay.
I always say that when we spoke about it, it kind of ruins your childhood, but it's like Mao Zur was a drinking song, a German drinking song. Mao to Yeshua. Imagine now, not in Hebrew. Imagine like in German. La 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 la. You can imagine guy with a beer here and so Had Gadya and Had Gadya might be the Jewish versions of non-Jewish songs, and it's hard to know this by now, but the themes and the style of both, they kind of exist in other cultures as well.
But, you know,
I imagine he's seen with background from Persia,
mhm.
at their state, we had a very different tune.
For which one?
Had Gadya
Ah, for God, yeah.
and Mao Sewer,
Yeah.
those I think would have been without the German beer hall.
Yeah.
Influence, it must have had something else.
What's the point?
So I have to ask him someday.
Yeah, it'll be interesting.
Mm.
Whatever is antiquity, Had Gadya was not originally connected to the Seder. The Jews of Avignon, of Provence in France, they recited on Sukkot, Had Gadya, not in Pesach. And this one is better. And the Jews of Cochin in India, they recited it at weddings. It was a song for weddings. And you imagine a wedding like starting like Had Gadya in the wedding.
I really love this song.
So,
Especially if you had a harem, a Had Gadya,
right. You don't know anything. You're just starting the marriage as you're supposed to start. And so we have some parts that we found in the Cairo Geniza. So we know that at least some parts were that old. In some versions, the song is connected to the Shema Israel. Like it becomes like an addition
Which
to
one?
the Shema Israel.
I can't remember.
Had Gadya.
Oh,
For example, here, אחד מי יודע, אחד הוא יודע, אחד אלוהים בשמיים. שמע ישראל, אדוני אלוהינו אחד. שניים מי יודע, שניים הוא, שני לוחות הברית, אחד אלוהינו, you know, they take part of the Shema and they put it inside of the song.
Also in the daily Tachanun, the Shomer Israel,
Right.
I also think it was.
לגמרי, yeah. I had friends in Rabbinical school that would complain that Tachanun is like supposed to be like a mournful prayer. We're ashamed, we're sinned, we are doing bad things.
Yes, I've always wanted.
And we have this very happy song like Shomer, Shomer Israel. Like really not go so well. An interesting suggestion of how this song became connected to Haggadah had to do with the famous story of Bnei Brak that we studied before. He ends with a student coming to tell the rabbi that it was time to recite the Shema. So the end of the Seder therefore became associated with being reminded that the time to recite the morning Shema was approaching. So that's the reason the Had Gadya was related to the Shema, was connected to the Haggadah. Like really from the back door. I mean, we all like it, but it's really it comes from there.
where does the Had Gadya come from?
And we're gonna get there now in a moment. Last time we had Had Gadya, why we think through number 13,
Yeah,
a number that is not particularly important in Judaism.
Pamayim Kitov.
13.
So this is of course the issue here is a gematria here in play.
Okay.
If we add up all of the numbers from 1 to 13, we get, I'm gonna make this easier, U91, which is the gematria of the word amen.
Ah, nice.
And amen is connected in the Ashkenazi custom to the Shema. Because one that when you say the Shema by yourself, you should say El Melech Ne'eman, Aleph Mem Nun, amen.
Mm.
So it sounds like a very nice idea. The only problem with this idea is that in the ones that associated the Shema with Had Gadya were Mizrahi Jews, and the custom of the El Melech Ne'eman was an Ashkenazi custom. So kind of was an issue here, but you never know.
We are the world.
So let's go with the Had Gadya. This is the last song included in the Haggadah. Haggadah, of course, super memorable, it's colorful. But there are a few things that are weird in the song that can be solved by getting his origins.
But isn't this for kids mainly?
Maybe, I love it.
The story-
Okay.
If they're still awake. and-
Matt likes it.
And they're
He's not a
still
kid.
If they're still awake and let them
After
know that
four-
this is the end.
After 4 cups of wine and everybody's feeling jolly, they're not falling asleep.
Yeah,
This is,
And the conclusion, the
Right.
encore,
Mhm.
the closing
Oh.
curtain.
and I call them tongue twisters,
first, and this is a question for Aaron.
sobriety. test.
Correct.
How does a cat eat a goat?
One piece at
A
a time.
goat,
It's a
a
big cat.
cat.
It's a big cat.
One piece
It's
at
a
a
huge cat.
time.
A lion
It's
is a
puma,
cat.
it's a lion, right?
A lion is a
Yeah, I guess.
How does a Jew eat a roasted kid? One
Yeah.
piece at a time.
Yeah. Another strange feature to me, people maybe know something, is that the Aramaic is occasionally incorrect. The song is in Aramaic,
Mhm.
and that's weird because it was obviously written by people that were not Aramaic speakers.
Shuna.
Uh-huh.
Then,
And there are a lot of Hebraisms. Hebraisms, when they use Hebrew, when they don't know what to do, they put a Hebrew word even though it's supposed to be Aramaic. For example, the words to hit, to burn, and to extinguish appear in Hebrew. Or Hebrew made to sound is if it's Aramaic and not true Aramaic. The Aramaic word, which should mean that he bought a goat, really means that he sold a goat. This vanava bitrezuzeh. This van is to sell, not to buy. So the other way around.
Hmm.
So none of this problem exists in an early version of the song that was found in a manuscript from the 13th, 14th century from Provence, from France. So again, we're with the French. In this manuscript, the
I
song
have
is
a cousin
there you go.
who was born there.
The song is not connected at all to the Seder. Nor does it seem to even be a song of religious significance. They have no religious significance. The song is not complete, but in the manuscript, so we don't know the whole thing. But we can easily see that it's a more correct version than in our Haggadah. So, first of all, it's also in Aramaic. So Had Gadya is one of Had Gadya. So one goat which my father bought, not so for 2 duzim, one goat. Ata kalva ve'achal Gadya, and the dog came and ate the goat. No cat. The dog is the one that came.
Makes more sense.
Ata chutra umacha kalva, and the stick came and hit the dog, and that's the right word. Instead of makeh in Hebrew, it's in Aramaic. Came and hit the dog. Ata nura ve'okid chutra, and the fire came and burned. Again, the right word. Burn the stick. Ata maya ve'tafad nura, and the water came and extinguished the fire. Again, the right word. Ata Torah ve'shata maya, and the ox came and drank the water. Ata itra aktar Torah ve'shata maya, and a rope came and tied up the ox. Ata achvara ve'achla itra, and a mouse came and ate the rope. Ata shunra ve'achla achvara, and then the cat came and ate the mouse.
That all makes sense.
So here the cat doesn't eat the goat, rather the dog eats the goat.
Mhm.
I mean, later in the song, does a cat eat not a goat but a mouse?
Mhm.
The end of the song was not preserved, so we cannot be certain who does what to whom at the end. But it seems that the song had no significant ending. Rather, was a long, never-ending list of animal object destroying object. I don't know, like how many beers are in the wall or those kind of things. That never ends. Then, when Haggadah became attached to the Haggadah, it was provided with a theologically correct ending. So then we have changed, like, now let's put God in this. Like, I mean, it's nice, but let's put God in this. This time was similar to another source in the Talmud that does the same. And according to a theologically correct, supposedly, world outlook, natural phenomena do not continue in an endless cycle, or rather they end according to a death, and according to the Haggadah, with the ultimate control of God.
This one with the cat eating the mouse.
Yeah.
Does something come after that?
We don't know. It's incomplete.
That's all.
It's a piece of a fragment. Yeah, it's a fragment of a manuscript.
That's something.
But there's decent people believe that it was actually
There's a song called "There's a Hole in the Bucket." You
Right,
realize
yeah,
that?
Oh,
You know the song?
yeah,
Yeah, it
Sure.
gets back to the beginning.
Right.
yeah.
but very interestingly.
Or how about, I know an old woman who swallowed a fly. I don't know why she swallowed a fly.
Right, well,
She falls.
Raya can sing that one for hours,
You get to
hours.
finally get to the horse.
Yeah,
She died, of course.
Of course.
yeah. If we miss the mouse, so the mouse did reappear in the Haggadah, in a German Haggadah from the 15th and 16th century, which includes the song in Aramaic, and in a translation into Yiddish, Germany after all, we find the stick that hit the dog, that beat the cat, that ate the mouse, that ate the goat.
What? The mouse ate the goat?
Now, if I travel believing that a cat can eat a goat, it would seem even more absurd for a mouse to eat one. Rather, it seems that the mouse was left over from the earlier, but they didn't know what to do with the mouse, so they just put it there. It was left over from the version.
It was a rat, and we all know how rats are about corpses and.
Right, never said that the goat was alive.
Right.
So it looks like they didn't know what to do with the mouse, that it was a remain from the other version, and they found its way into the wrong place. That's mice usually do. Find it into the wrong place. Guys, Chag
Thank you
Sameach,
very much.
Chag Sameach.
Sameach.
Thank you for participating. It was fun. We're gonna stop here and also from home. I wish you all Chag Sameach.
Thank you.
Last night I came across a clip on YouTube of Jack Benny, and I think it was the Letterman, I'm not sure. And